Scouting in that period of time. Here in our area, we serve 6 counties. The 3 valley counties, San Joaquin, Stanislaus, and Merced, and the adjacent 3 mountain counties, Calaveras, Tuolumne, and Mariposa.
Wow.
The hardest part of my speech is remembering that. No, I'm kidding. and within the city of Stockton, we're called the Gold Country District, which is basically San Joaquin and Calaveras counties. Overall, we have about 5,000 kids in the council, and we were just talking about one of our scout troops has been in existence for 75 years.
Wow.
Which is pretty amazing.
That's hugely amazing.
Pretty amazing.
And I was surprised when you talked about the area that it covers, that it's only 5,000 kids. So we should talk about trying to increase that, because scouting is a huge opportunity, not only to participate in activities, but for personal growth.
Well, we have most folks are familiar with Eagle Scout. We have either having received their Eagle Scout award, which is the highest award you can get in scouting. We've had presidents and astronauts and all sorts of folks that have been Eagle Scouts. But we have about 7,500 Eagle Scouts in our 6-county area.
Wonderful.
And in an average year, we get about 140 kids that complete their Eagle rank. Scouting is basically about leadership development. At the end of the day, people know us because they know about hiking and camping and canoeing and all the activities. But the activities that kids are involved in are simply a method to introduce leadership skills. And that's what we're really about at the end of the day, is leadership development.
And people are probably surprised to hear that. And I'm glad that you said that, because to me that's critical, especially now in our current day and age, with you and I were just talking about the political climate and just things going on in our society. Now more than ever, we need leaders, and the children are our future leaders.
Yep, absolutely true. It's funny, you watch kids today and they spend most of their time, you'll see them walking down the street holding their digital device, whatever it is, and looking at it and not looking up, and just walking down the sidewalk looking at their device and talking and texting and everything else. And then you go into a school and you talk to the kids and you talk to them about the mountains and the trees, and they look at you with absolute amazement because they have absolutely no concept of what that's like. And it's kind of a shame when you think about it. There's a lot that kids miss out on today, and we try to fill that gap within the limitations, both budgetary and from the standpoint of volunteer support, because we are a volunteer organization. We don't get any government funding, and we're basically here to we're providing a service.
You're providing a huge service, and I think the comment you made about kids, especially in our local community, not being aware of nature and mountains is really sad. Unfortunately, in our community, the poverty level is high, and a lot of kids may not see anything beyond their neighboring streets. And this is a wonderful opportunity for them to expand their horizons and see other opportunities that exist. Yes, we're not far from Tahoe, we're not far from the ocean, but there's still barriers to those destinations for our local community.
It's funny you mention that, because one of the other hats that I wear, in addition to administering the program in the 2 counties, I'm what's called a Cub Master. And a Cub Master, the master part seems intimidating to some people, but a Cub Master is basically an adult volunteer who gets up in front of a group of kids every month and makes a fool out of himself. And I say that to volunteers all the time, because you try to recruit people to be Cub Masters, and I think it's a little intimidating. But I have a Cub Scout group in South Stockton. We started it 2 years ago, and this is our third anniversary. So we're, and you know, depending on soccer season, I have anywhere between 18 and 35 kids. And, you know, most of them come from challenged environments. They don't have you know, they're certainly not wealthy, let's put it that way. And we have to do what we can to try to meet the financial needs of, you know, program supplies and things like that within the context of their home situation. Because again, everything that we get is basically donated, and parents in my Cub Scout group pay what they can, and if they can't pay at all, we've had some very generous local folks. I won't embarrass them by giving you their names, but we've had some folks locally that have sprung for uniforms and program supplies. And, you know, when we take the kids on a field trip, you know, there are folks that will help with that, which is really great.
Wonderful.
But my objective is to get 3 or 4 Cub Scout packs in the South Stockton area, because we didn't have anything. I got looking at a map one day and realized that, at least as respects Stockton, we didn't have any groups south of Harding Way, and I thought that was just tragic. So we decided to start one and kind of incubate a group of leaders and then branch out from there. And so far, it's been a lot of fun, and we have our first group of young people that are ready to graduate into Boy Scouts. Cub Scouts is like junior high school to Boy Scouts high school. And then we have a program that I hope we'll get a chance to talk about called Exploring, which is kind of like college. So we have a lot of different opportunities for kids. And again, all of the activities are basically built around providing kids with leadership opportunities to develop their own skills.
Awesome.
There.
And that's awesome. And let's back up a little bit. So what if one of our viewers or listeners would like to make a donation? How do they reach you? Or they have a student that they're interested in enrolling in Boy Scouts. How do they do that?
Either way, you're welcome to call me. I'll give out my cell phone number. It's 518. It's obviously 209, 518-1276. Or you can call the Stockton office of the Boy Scouts, which is 566-7702, and ask for our district executive. Her name is Robin Wilson. And one of us will be able to accommodate whatever you want to do.
All right. And what about a website or a Facebook page?
We do have a website. It's called GYC Scouting. GYC is Greater Yosemite Council. GYCscouting.org. And calendars, there actually are electronic opportunities for donations. And you can sign up online if you want to join.
Awesome. And that particular website, is that specific to our area?
It is.
Okay, great.
It is.
Wonderful. So if a donation is made there, it will stay local.
Yeah, all of the money stays local.
Wonderful.
The only money that goes out of this area are the actual registration fee, which is $33 for everybody, adults and kids. We all pay the same fee. That goes to the national office, and it provides the program support that we receive from our national office. It's an annual fee.
All right.
And it also covers things like insurance, because all of our sponsors have $1 million insurance policy. And in this day and age, unfortunately, we need those sorts of things.
Definitely. We need that. Earlier, when you and I were talking about scouting, you mentioned to me that Boy Scouts includes girls, and a lot of people might not be aware. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, that's been one of the more controversial steps we've taken in the last year, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to talk a little bit about the genesis of that decision, because I have firsthand experience. I went to a Cub Scout group, and Cub Scouts, I mentioned them earlier. Those are like 8, 9, 10-year-old kids. And I remember going to a Cub Scout pack up in Murphy's, and I saw a young person in a blue uniform. Cub Scouts wear blue. And this person had hair down to the middle of their back. And I thought, at that point, I wasn't familiar. I hadn't seen too many girls in scouting, and they weren't officially part of scouting at that point. But I made a comment to the Cub Master and said, "Boy, that kid's hair is long." And he said, "Well, it's kind of a girl." And what happened, the reason that I think the change, more than anything, that the change occurred, two reasons. The first is I talked at the beginning about developing leaders, and certainly girls need to develop leadership skills, particularly in this day and age, as much as boys do. So folks generally understand that. But frankly, the majority of the girls that have joined scouting have done so because their brother is in the program and they see all the cool things that their brother is doing and want to be able to do it too. I had a volunteer up in Lodi that just was chomping at the bit to be able to get his daughter into scouting because she was going to every one of the meetings and doing all the activities that her brother was doing, but couldn't officially get all of the recognition that the brother got. So he was thrilled when the change came. But for folks that have been in scouting for a long time, it was I won't call it a difficult pill to swallow, but it was quite an adjustment. And we still have folks that object to having, or maybe we'll just say that they're a little confused about how we can be the Boy Scouts of America and have girls. Very frankly, the Boy Scouts of America is the corporate name, and it never changed. Girls in scouting are a part of something called Scouts BSA, and just so that everybody understands, the Girl Scouts or the girls that are in Scouts BSA and the Boy Scouts don't go camping together. So boys are in boy units, girls are in girl units. The girls have girl leaders, the boys have boy leaders, and that's the way that works. So we've always had female leaders in Cub Scouting, den leaders. My mom was a den mother when I was growing up, and I remember having Cub Scout den meetings in our garage. And women have always been kind of the backbone of the Cub Scout program, but it's been, I'd say, within the last 10 or 15 years that women have been more involved in Boy Scouting.
Awesome.
So.
And you talked about Cub Scouts starting at the age of 8, so that's the youngest?
Yeah, well, actually, you can be a Cub Scout. You can be a lion. We call them lions. You can be a lion at 6. That's kind of the entry step into Cub Scouting. And then you graduate from lions into tigers. And those are 7-year-olds. And then 8, 9, and 10 are the more traditional Cub Scout program, wolves and bears and what we call Webelos, which is an acronym. It means We'll Be Loyal Scouts. And then from there, they graduate into a Boy Scout troop.
Wonderful. And talk about the badges.
Well, I mentioned Eagle Scout, and that's the pinnacle. That's the one that everybody seems to understand, that seems to know about. Cub Scouts, well, really all of the ranks, we call them, the badges are called rank advancements. All of the ranks include a set of skills that the kids have to complete under the supervision of their parents when they're Cub Scout age, under the supervision of their Scoutmaster when they're Boy Scout age. And in completing those tasks, they earn a badge. And once Boy Scouts get to a particular point in their scouting career, they start to earn merit badges. And merit badges are fun. It's an opportunity to learn a little bit more about a particular skill. You and I talked previously at one point about veterinary science. Mm-hmm. That's a merit badge. But we have, I'll be meeting Thursday night with the Stockton Astronomical Society about doing a class for Boy Scouts in astronomy merit badge.
Excellent.
And there's first aid and swimming and all of the things that you typically associate with scouting, But then there are also other interesting merit badges like computers and game design and a whole bunch of stuff that, frankly, I don't understand.
Wonderful. And
But
maybe
kids today understand it.
maybe you can have coding too. Recently,
We already have that.
awesome,
we have it.
wonderful.
Yeah.
That's critical.
Yeah.
That's a huge issue in our county office of education, and there's girls that code now,
Yeah.
which is amazing. There's a huge group with that, and we just we're talking about that on a prior show last week. And it's amazing to offer all of this exposure to kids to different careers and opportunities, and just let them see where the possibilities are.
Well, it's interesting you bring up careers because that's a pet project of mine. We have a program called Exploring, and Exploring is geared toward teenagers. It's been around since, well, I won't go into the history, but in the 70s, we had a rather, at the time it was a big deal, but that was the first point at which we had girls in scouting. So everybody that thinks that we just introduced girls in scouting is about 40 years behind the times, because I was a high school student in 1972 when they introduced girls in scouting, and embarked on what's called the Contemporary Exploring Program. It's not contemporary so much after 40 years, but it still does the same thing, and we identify organizations in the community that have skills and adults who have experience in those skills, and then we marry those groups up with students who are teenagers and are interested in those particular fields. We've had an ongoing partnership with Stockton Unified School District now for almost 5 years. We do an annual, I say we, they do an annual career interest survey, and we survey 14,000 Stockton Unified High School students. We offer them the opportunity to choose between 250 career categories and 60 leisure time activities. And of course, the computer spins all that around and creates lists of kids that are interested. And then we go look for community resources. As an example, the Experimental Aviation Association has an aviation explorer post out at the airport, and the kids are learning to fly. A couple weeks ago, we had a group of young people that did a pre-flight on a it was a Cessna 152.
Amazing.
And then they got in the plane and did a check ride, flew around the valley with a licensed pilot, obviously. And last week I was out teaching them to build rockets. I don't get involved in all of these groups, but it's a particular hobby of mine, and so we thought the kids would like to learn how to build rockets and go fly them, which
how exciting.
we intend to do.
How amazing.
But
and
these are
phenomenal.
all kids that want to be pilots and or want to have something to do with careers in aviation. But when you see a Stockton police cadet or a Stockton Unified police cadet or a Stockton CHP police cadet, those are all explorers. And Stockton Fire Department has had an exploring program for many years. And so these kids are learning, usually they meet twice a month, and they're learning all about that particular career. And I equate it, because I'm a guy, I equate it to going to Men's Warehouse. So you go into Men's Warehouse, you want to buy a suit, you try 5 or 6 on, you find one that fits that you like, and then you buy it. And exploring is kind of like that. So you might want to be a pilot. You think you want to be a pilot. And because I'm older, I always use the reference of coming home from school and watching Marcus Welby reruns on TV. and I talk about the kid that watches Marcus Welby reruns on TV after school, decides he wants to be a doctor, goes to medical school and finds out he can't stand the sight of blood. Well, that's probably a decision you wanted to make before you spent $50,000 on your first year of medical school.
Yes.
So we give kids the opportunity to try things on. And I'm always looking for new sponsoring opportunities. So if you think you have a skill set that young people would be interested in from a career standpoint, feel free to give me a call, 209-518-1276, and we'll talk about whether there's a constituency of young people that would be interested in what you do.
Awesome.
And it can be the Merit Badge Program for Boy Scouts, or it could be the Exploring Program and be something that's maybe a little bit more in depth.
And you and I have spoken, and I was excited to hear that there's a group of kids that are really interested in veterinary medicine. So we're trying to make that happen.
It's actually a big category. If I remember, I want to say two or 374 kids that are interested in veterinary medicine. And that's interesting comparatively because almost the same number of kids are interested in law enforcement. And law enforcement is one of our top interest areas. So in this area, veterinary science is really popular.
And I've found that when I've gone to career days and such, and I've reached out, so far I have about 4 other veterinarians that are interested. And so hopefully by the end of the year or next year, we'll have a veterinary
We can put something together. Yeah.
It would be awesome.
No, I think it'd be great.
It would be a win-win. And to me, what you talked about with your analogy with someone watching Marcus Welby and then getting into medical school, it's extremely challenging to get into veterinary school, medical school, etc. And after you've gone through all of that effort, you don't want to have to back up and totally change, do a 180 with where you're going.
Particularly with the cost of higher education these
Definitely.
days. Everybody's talking about the cost of going to college. So, when you make your choice, it should be an informed choice, and we can help with that.
Well, and I love that scouting and I don't think most people realize that this is an opportunity to explore different careers. And to me, every high school student should have that opportunity because it gives them direction and it gives them awareness. And maybe there's a career that they get exposed to. Oh, I could see myself doing this. Or they didn't know that it existed. That's pivotal. We should have that for every single high school student throughout our area.
I understand that it's tough for schools to be able to staff up to teach careers in 250 different categories. But we've got such a great resource in the community if we can just find adults that are willing to share their expertise. And that was probably one of the biggest, I don't know what to call it, but that was one of the biggest surprises that came out of some of the survey research that was done in the 70s. Of course, that was the era of don't trust anybody over 30. And when the survey came out, it said 94% of the kids that were surveyed wanted more information about careers, and 85% of them wanted adult help. And that was pretty earth-shaking for the time. And I continue to believe that exploring is, as much as Cub Scouting and Boy Scouting are important, I think exploring is one of the more important things that we do.
And you mentioned several law enforcement, first responders opportunities. What other careers do you have available for kids to explore?
Well, now I have to think about that. Well, I mentioned fire science. That's a big one. I mentioned law enforcement, and we have different aspects of law enforcement. As I mentioned, the CHP, Stockton Police Department. We probably have 15 law enforcement organizations up and down the valley that are sponsoring exploring.
Awesome.
And it's great for the public safety arena because they're growing their own folks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's
a win-win.
It's an absolute win-win, and it's a way of getting kids more involved in their community now while they're young people, but it's also a way for the department to be able to recruit people ultimately who have a frame of reference about the area that they serve, mm-hmm. which is kind of challenging. And I haven't mentioned it, and I'm going to get kicked if I don't, but the San Joaquin County Sheriff's Department has had an Explorer post, we call it an Explorer post, 1850, that has been here since the middle 80s, at least as far back as I can remember. And we've had support from all of the sheriffs. Sheriff Steve Moore actually started it when I think he was a lieutenant, and it's gone on to this day. And
Awesome.
Pat Withrow's been very supportive, and we're very fortunate to have the relationships with law enforcement that we have. Anyway,
Awesome. What about medical? What about?
Well, we HIPAA, the health. Well, let's
The
see.
privacy,
Help me with
basically,
that.
the Privacy Act.
HIPAA really kind of threw a monkey wrench into our medical exploring program. We used to have a medical explorer post at St. Joseph's Hospital that had 300 members.
Wow.
It was huge. We would go and meet in the auditorium under the hospital. They would divide up by specialties, and the surgeons would go one way and the phlebotomists would go another, and then they'd all get back at the end of the evening for their announcements and whatever. But it was a huge group, and I'd love to be able to do something like that. But Stockton Unified has their Health Career Academy,
Yes.
which I think is doing a great job of meeting that need. So, times change, the laws change, and how it affects us changes. And we try to be as adaptive as we can. But medical and law, the legal profession, and law enforcement are all three very high interest areas.
And I would think dental as well.
Yeah, I was working on a dentistry explorer post, and we hit a couple of bumps in the road. I'm still working on that one, but we have a bunch of kids that are interested in dentistry. Like I said, 250 career categories. You can find a group you can find the opportunity for a group. Every time you turn around, when you look at this thing, it's a matter of identifying the resources in the community and enough kids that you can create a synergy between the adults and the young people.
All right. And talk about the time commitment. So if we have a viewer or listener that might be interested in sharing their career, what kind of time commitment is that?
Well, in scouting, we joke and we laugh at each other and say, well, it only takes an hour a month. It really doesn't take an hour a month. But the Aviation Explorer Post is an example. They meet twice a month for about an hour. We meet at 6:30 and we're done usually by 8 o'clock. And the leaders, the adults, one of the things that's interesting about exploring is that the young people actually lead and plan the program. And you say to yourself, well, how can they plan the program if they don't know anything about the career? They do know what they want to see, and they can be a resource for the adults in identifying resources. And that's why the adults are there. They know where the resources are. The kids tell us what they want to learn or what their interest area is, and then we try to marry the resources from the adults with the interest from the kids, because you can devise a program all day long, and if it isn't what the kids want to see, they're going to walk. So you have to I won't call it compromise, but you have to adapt to what it is that they're looking for.
And that's awesome, because they, in essence, are controlling their destiny. They have certain things that they would like to see or learn about. And that's awesome that they have so much input on what they're going to learn about.
Well, and it kind of brings this discussion full circle, because one of the things that I talked about at the very beginning was the importance of leadership development. And in creating a group that the kids actually lead, they learn to be leaders. And, it's like anything else. It's learning by doing. And so for that, it's a great model. And it's been paying benefits since 1910. So.
And it's a wonderful model for reality and what they're going to experience in their career. We talked earlier about going to school, going to medical school or veterinary school or what have you. You can only gain so much by sitting in the classroom. It's getting out there, doing it, practicing your skills that is really where you learn and get to make a difference.
And that's what that's one of the things that we stress with our adult leaders, who, by the way, are all volunteers. Most of the leaders in scouting are parents of kids. In the case of exploring, most of the adult leadership are career professionals in one arena or another. But, we talk about the importance of hands-on learning, and that goes all the way from the 5-year-old who comes in as a lion Cub Scout until, the 18-year-old that is learning to fly a plane. All of those things, basically, we try to give them the opportunity to try it on and make some mistakes, but there's learning in making mistakes. My first experience with my Cub Scout group was teaching them to build model rockets, and we took the rockets out to the park one day, and Jose Hernandez, our local astronaut,
how awesome,
was kind enough to come out. Oh, it was the funniest thing because, I've got this group of 35 kids and their parents, and I didn't tell them that Jose was coming. And he's such a low-key guy. I mean, he doesn't make a big show out of coming in, but he's got his NASA jacket on. And these kids are working away on their rockets, and one of them in particular that I remember turned around. He had come to the event in his little NASA T-shirt, and he was a great kid. Anyway, he turns around, and he saw Jose walking up, and they talk about their jaws hitting the floor. This little guy just about fainted. He said, "Isn't he the astronaut?" I said, "Yes, he is." And Jose came and talked to the kids about the importance of staying in school and, working hard and having goals and all of those. I mean, it was a great day for those kids.
Wow.
And
that's amazing.
We've got groups that are doing that all over the 6 counties that we serve every day.
Well, when you talked about the opportunity to fly a plane, I mean, that's amazing that you're providing a huge resource to these kids that never would they have a chance.
And it's, if you connect the young lady who is the Explorer Post president of the Aviation Post, her name is Brenda. Brenda wants to be a pilot in the worst way. And I, through our scouting family of adults, one of my leaders told me about a lady that is kind of a semi-retired. She had kids, and so she's a stay-at-home mom now. But she was an airline pilot, and we came to find out about an organization of female pilots. And when I told her that we had this young lady who was the leader of the group and wanted to be a pilot, she couldn't wait to come down and talk to them.
Aww.
And so we haven't had her down yet, but she's from Lodi, and she's going to be coming to one of our Explorer Post meetings to talk to the kids about what it takes to become a commercial pilot.
Awesome.
So
amazing.
It's all about resources.
Wonderful. And speaking of resources, so how can the community help you? Obviously, you want people in certain careers, but do you need people to help with some activities? Do you need people to help to lead a troop? Do you need supplies?
Well, we need all of those things. We won't turn anything away. Adults that want to give some of their time and their experiences are always welcome. Typically, the folks that work with the groups are parents, but that doesn't mean because you don't happen to be a parent. Although I'm a parent, my daughter was never in scouting. I do it because I've been in scouting since I was 8 years old, and I just happen to think it's important. But anybody can be a leader. I mentioned merit badges, and we talked about exploring. People that have career information to share, we can find a vehicle to do that. We have leadership training at all levels for adults. So if you said, well, gee, I'd like to help, but I don't know anything. Nobody comes to this program knowing a darn thing. But we have, we laugh about the fact that we have a book for everything. But we have adult leader training that's done by volunteers that helps folks to get grounded in some of the not only the skills, the methods, but our objectives as far as what we're trying to teach young people.
Awesome.
So you can call me, 209-518-1276. I feel like I'm selling Tupperware.
This is awesome. I was going to ask you to repeat the number so that people have it handy.
Yeah. So either that or 209-566-7702. That's the office of, that's the Boy Scouts field office in Stockton.
And what about supplies? Are there things that you need that you go through a lot?
Yeah, our biggest problem with supplies is storage. Yes, there are things that it's probably kind of like the Red Cross. The Red Cross says, don't give us stuff, give us money. And unfortunately, they have the same problem that we do. It's you get all this stuff and then you have no place to store it. So, it's frankly better if you want to make a contribution. Contributions are tax deductible. But I've had people give me canoes and backpacks and all kinds of things. When we started doing the South Stockton group, I hope you won't mind, but George Redamosa said, hey, I've got some backpacks and I've got some boots and stuff like that. And if kids need them, we'll bring them over. And that was great. And all of that stuff ended up in the hands of people who were who needed that equipment. And so, yeah, if it's substantial stuff, from time to time, craft supplies, things like that. But frankly, for those sorts of things, it's probably a little better that you make a contribution, and we'll figure out what it is that we need. Believe it or not, we need popsicle sticks. The Cub Scouts do crafts out of popsicle sticks, and we always need popsicle sticks.
That's awesome. And I want to give a personal shout out to the Scouts, because I know the Scouts have come out to the zoo. They've sold, I believe, hot chocolate at events that we've had. They also have come to put flags at our local cemetery on different veterans' holidays. And it's really important, and it's great to see kids that care about our community.
I am really glad you brought that up, because I was going to kick myself if I left here without talking about a program that we do every year called Scouting for Food. There are an awful lot of folks in our area that need help as far as food. And in November, every November, Scouts from all over our area go door to door to collect canned food for. In Lodi, we partner with the Salvation Army. In Galt, I'm most familiar with my area. In Galt, we partner with the South County Crisis Center. I mentioned Lodi, we partner with the Salvation Army. In Stockton, we partner with the Emergency Food Bank.
Awesome. And
for the last, I don't know how many years, we've collected between 15 and 17,000 pounds of canned foods and food items that folks need between Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's a great program. Our kids learn about giving back to the community. They go door to door one weekend and they give out a paper bag in a lot of cases. Sometimes it's a door hanger. And we ask people to leave whatever they wish to donate the following weekend on their porch, and we come back and pick it up.
And that has a huge impact.
It's a huge impact. And we get calls starting right now, as a matter of fact. We start getting calls from agencies saying, are you guys doing this again? Yeah. And so over this weekend, I had a planning meeting about Scouting for Food. But we collect tons of food for the community. And
that's awesome.
Truthfully, we don't blow our horn. We don't make a big deal about it. The kids get the opportunity to learn a little something about giving back to the community, and that's our real objective. But it's a neat program.
I didn't even know about that. I'm on the board for the food bank, and I can tell you food insecurity throughout our county is huge and unfortunately growing. And we give out boxes at Thanksgiving. We give out a full turkey dinner, and at Christmas as well. And the cans that you're collecting are part of that, plus the everyday food that we give out to people. in need throughout our county. So that's huge. I had no idea. Thank you for
Yep.
doing that. That's phenomenal.
So we get a kick out of it. We have a lot of fun doing it. And then in Lodi, we do the Christmas tree pickup. We partner with Waste Management.
That I knew.
And the kids run around. They have a ball. It's usually the first weekend in January. Run around and pick up Christmas trees, and and it's like the post office. Neither rain nor sleet, and we're out there doing our thing.
Which is awesome.
So yeah. Anyway,
anything else?
I'm really
you'd
glad
like
you
to
brought
add?
that up, because I was going to kick myself if I forgot scouting for food.
That's
So-
amazing. And I didn't know about that. So I'm really glad you shared that. And that's just one more phenomenal thing about scouting. Anything else that you'd
I
like to
can't
add?
think of anything. My gosh, I've burned up how much time? 50 minutes. My
We've
gosh.
talked about scouting. It's important. One final question. I know you mentioned Eagle Scouts a couple times.
Mhm.
Talk about the projects that the kids do
Oh,
to be
yeah.
able to get that passage or rite of passage.
Well, starting in 1965, one of the requirements in order to achieve Eagle Scout was to do a community project. And the project had to be planned and executed by the scout. And going back to the idea of developing leaders, they have to recruit other young people to help them with the project. And we are working now to try to compile a list of all of the Eagle Scout service projects that have been done in our 2-county area, and hope to make that visible for the community in February during
Awesome.
Scouting's anniversary month. But the vegetable beds out at Boggs Tract, the community garden out there.
Wonderful.
The greenhouse out there that Don Aguilar's group uses was refurbished as a part of an Eagle Scout service project. I'm kind of drawing a blank on some of the names
What did Dr.
right now.
Lindsay do? Our mutual friend, Dr. John Lindsay.
Dr. Lindsay.
I didn't know he did
He
something
got
at the
his
park.
eagle a long time ago, and I don't remember.
I want to say he built a bridge at a local park.
Wouldn't surprise me. I will tell you one that, since you brought up bridges, up in Angels Camp, and actually it's in Murphy's, but up in Murphy's there's a venerable old bridge that separates the Murphy's Hotel from the Black Bart Playhouse on the way to Ironstone Winery. And it became kind of a rickety old bridge. It's old. And a group of, a young man decided to make rebuilding that bridge his Eagle project. Now,
Wow.
he had to go out and deal with Fish and Game and the Department of Highways.
Permits.
And permits and materials. But when next time you go to Murphy's, take a right-hand turn at the Murphy's Hotel, and you'll drive over Murphy's Creek, and there's a bridge there, and take a look at that very substantial metal bridge.
How awesome.
That was an Eagle Scout project.
Amazing.
And I am always amazed when I think about that project because of the huge effort. And it didn't just involve the Scouts. The whole community got involved in, recruiting the materials necessary to do this. But we've got kids that have done flagpoles at churches and schools and all kinds of things that Eagle Scouts have done to contribute to the community.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I just want to thank you again for being here and sharing all of the magnificent information about scouting. I'm going to ask you one more time to give your contact information.
Either you're welcome to always call me, 209-518-1276. My name is Don Parsons. Or you're welcome to call the Scout office, which is also 209-566-7702.
All right. And with that,